All right. Hey there, mamas. Hey there, wellness warriors. Today's episode has a different tone. It's about young people with cancer. It's tough, it's raw. We're going to be talking to a grieving mother turning tragedy into triumph. We're talking about something that's been making headlines and breaking hearts, cancer, and specifically how it impacts families and what we can do to support one another through the unimaginable.
I'm going to be honest, lately my health has not been the best, physically and mentally. I've been in so much pain lately. I'm now constantly on pain medicine because my body hurts so bad. I just got back from a 2-day hospital stay yesterday because I needed IV pain medicine, but I was lucky enough to be able to get it at home, so now I'm getting all my pain medicine at home.
Our guest today is someone who knows this journey all too well. She's a grieving mother and an absolute warrior in so many aspects. She owns her own integrative oncology and functional medicine practice. Her daughter Zuza was a 14-year-old social media influencer who bravely shared her decade-long battle with acute myeloid leukemia with over 1.8 million followers. Zuza's story has touched millions, and today we are going to honor her legacy by talking about community and gratitude and how we can all live more fully, even in the face of life's hardest challenges. So grab your coffee or your matcha or whatever's fueling you today, and let's get into it. Joining us now is Dagmara Beine. She's a mother, a physician assistant, and someone who has shown incredible strength in the face of the unimaginable. Dagmara, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So first, how are you doing? I'm so impressed by you to be able to show up with such strength. This is all very fresh. Zuza just passed away a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we are hunkered down at home and allowing unimaginable grief to hit us in huge waves and holding space for each other through, tears. We've been together in this home so much with her, and so just trying to learn um, to take a breath when she's not here is a lot right now.
Right, because for quite a long time, she's been at home fighting for her life. She hasn't been able to get to go to school and be like most kids. She's been at home with you guys, doing her absolute best to fight tooth and nail. And again, we're so sorry for your loss. She really was this bright light, though, and beautiful, incredibly gorgeous. Her story inspired so many people, and though some people at home may not be familiar, so can you tell us a little bit more about what made her so special?
Yes. So Zuza was diagnosed with a rare high risk leukemia. We often hear of kids having leukemia, but she had a different kind, one that didn't have statistically a good prognosis. And so most kids who get diagnosed with AML, um, some get a cure, and if they don't, they often will live for 1 to 2 years. And what makes Zuza's story so different is that she was on a cancer journey for 11 of her 14 years when she was here. And around the time when she first relapsed, so she had about a 5 year remission, which is usually a cure. After she went through chemotherapy when she was 3, relapsed when she was 8, 9 years old, we allowed her to have a phone, to have access to social media because she lived in a hospital. She went through 3 bone marrow transplants. And she just sort of picked up that phone and started making little videos of herself, in the hospital, dancing. And in the beginning, I think mimicking what other girls were doing, except she had an IV pole with, chemotherapy attached to her. And that over the last 5 years just snowballed into her becoming this very authentic, beautiful spokesperson for what it's like to be a teenage girl and do all the teenage things, the get ready with me's, the makeup, and live with cancer. Um, and, the world just fell in love with her because I think her authenticity, um, she showed the ugly and the hard, but it didn't stop her from um, just being like a very hopeful, creative teenager, and she shared that with the world.
Yeah. Look, as a news anchor and a journalist, so often we're sharing the bad things, the ugliness of social media, but the community that she built and the sort of normalness that she was able to feel in this digital space, was very special to her, and obviously for your whole family too. She was so open and honest about her journey too, even in those hardest moments. What do you think gave her the strength to share her story? I mean, she was so vulnerable, and there were millions of people watching her.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, the love in our family of just 1,000% being there for her. When Zuza was diagnosed, I was a physician assistant in the emergency department and very quickly realized the lack of comprehensive cancer care that is received. And so I changed my whole career, went back to school to be able to help support her with integrative oncology. Um, and then just all the messages from, 9-year-old to 80-year-old women writing her about how inspirational she is on their own cancer journey, or not even cancer, on their chronic illness journey, on their mental health journey. She was just able, because she was so authentic and raw and showed both sides, she touched so many people, and I get those messages every day and I love them. I get thousands of messages still every day about how there have been, girls who had a sibling who had cancer and it helped them so much to watch her, all the way through 7-year-old women who were going through breast cancer diagnoses. And I think that really fueled her to share more. There really isn't there really isn't a lot of people sharing what it's like just living with cancer, right? A lot of us go through a phase of going through treatment, but this was 11 years of her life, and yeah.
And one of the things that stood out to me was her gratitude throughout the whole process. Even in her final days, she was focusing on the little things, her relationships, her animals, even her hairstyles, like she typically had been in her "Get Ready with Me" videos. How did that impact your family? And what can we all learn from it? How can we all have gratitude, even when we're in a really dark place?
Yeah, we often think about I like to imagine that her life was perfect. All of our lives are perfect, and she came here and she did a freaking amazing job at what she was supposed to do here. And
Oh,
she lived so fully with so much pain. And so I think for me and for my son and for my husband, we have so much pain right now, but we're going to live so fully. Um, because that's what she taught us. That's what she taught us to do. And um, we can't always change our circumstances, right? We get dealt different cards in life, but we, just as Zuza did, we can live through the hard, right? We can live through the pain. And I think that's the message. I think that's what she would want her message to be,
right.
is that you can live with the hard beautifully.
Yeah. Well, look, cancer is on the rise. I think that's one of the reasons. Excuse me. I'm so sorry for your loss. I just can't imagine. I have a little girl, and I just can't imagine what that must feel like. Um, but it is. Cancer's on the rise, and even on the rise for young people. And so this really touches so many families. As a physician assistant, you said you went back to school to try to learn even more. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about the impact that cancer has on families, the entire family?
Yeah, so cancer is on the rise right now. Cancer is the number one cause of death in kids. And if you are born right now, you have a 1 out of 2 or a 1 out of 3 chance of being diagnosed with cancer in your lifetime. And that should be overwhelming and a wake-up call to everybody. The biggest misconception about cancer is that it's bad luck. Cancer is not bad luck. It's not just some genetic random mutation. It's our environment. It's what we eat. It's the kind of makeup we put on our face. It's our hair dye. It's everything. And because our world has become so much more toxic, that is why all of us are getting more cancer. And so it is also more preventable than we think. So that's one thing. I just want people to know that so much more goes into cancer care. And I think one of the reasons why Zuza was able to be here for as long as she was because poor kid, she not only did conventional medicine because she had to, but she also did so much integrative medicine. You know, if she wasn't getting chemotherapy, she was getting high dose vitamin C and, she did it all. The biggest misconception about cancer and how it affects a family is that the whole family has cancer, right? Like it touches every single one of us. Her brother, Finn, who's 2 years younger than her, he was 18 months old when she was diagnosed. He doesn't know what it's like to not have a sister who has cancer. And people who get to survive cancer and be a survivor and stay in remission, everybody sort of in the world like celebrates and says you rung the bell and everything's done now, and people don't realize you're never done. It's always going to impact you emotionally and mentally, and the checkups, 95% of kids who survive cancer have like chronic disease later on in life. So I always say the only cure for cancer is prevention. So I really want people to know that because it is so preventable in the choices that we make every day in our life. And I don't think that that's talked about enough.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And of course, that means extra screenings and screening early, and listening to your doctor's orders. But it's also, like you say, it's these little decisions every single day that we make. I've been doing health stories for NewsNation for the last, I don't know, I get a little bit over a year, I guess. And it's really made me think, even as a fitness professional and women's health professional myself, about the things that I'm putting in my body and putting on my body, and all of that. And I hope that this podcast helps to raise some more awareness about all that too, while we search for root causes and cures and all of that. Zuza's Instagram account, for friends at home who want to check it out, because I know you're still monitoring it, is as Zuza's Way to Healing. But it became this source of hope and connection for so many people. Can you talk a little bit more about how social media played a role in her journey, and what advice you would give other families who are navigating through this illness in the digital age? Do you recommend them documenting their journey as well? You know, are there pieces of it that made the journey even harder? Do you recommend that they look for pages like Zuza's? Where do you stand on all of that? If you were
Yeah.
able to do it all over again, or what advice do you have?
Yeah, I think it's hard. Obviously, we all know, especially for kids, that there's potentially the good of social media, but I think there's also a lot of bad from social media. I won't allow my son, for example, to have Instagram or TikTok or those things for a long time. Zuza was in a situation where she truly, for 5 years, could not go to school, could not make friends. She lived in hospitals. And so it was a very individual decision to allow her to have access to the world and have access to other teenage girls. Um, and I'm I have no regrets. There was it's mind blowing because even as positive and amazing as her account was, there was always still a lot of hate, a lot of very hurtful comments about the way her body looked because she was so skinny.
I also just wanted to say I have had multiple comments this month saying that I post way too much about my cancer and that it's literally all I post. When this is my life and this is what I'm going through, I am living with pain constantly on a daily basis, and that's what my life looks like. It's not always pretty and it's not always cute because I am real with you guys and this is what my life looks like.
So I think, my advice is yes, I think if you allow your children to document their journey or to follow accounts, similar to Zuza's, it's just so absolutely important to monitor, and to talk to your kids about, people who write hurtful comments are hurting themselves. I mean, like they are hurting inside. Yeah.
Yeah, and people hide behind the screens and the anonymity. I mean, I just can't imagine who would do that.
Oh,
And when
yeah,
you see comments like that, you just have to go, well, that person is obviously hurting very
right.
much from the inside out, and they're just that's why they would
That's what we
feed
would
such
always teach
hateful
her is, like,
things.
"That person is hurting, you don't engage." And oftentimes, she
Yeah.
never had to engage because her millions of other followers were just, like they would take care of it. So,
Cheering her on.
yes.
Yeah, cheering her on. And cheering you on, cheering the whole family on too. Let's talk a little bit more about your resistance because watching anybody who's listening right now, watching their child go through something so difficult, it's our worst nightmare. It's the thing that we fear the most. It's what keeps us awake at night. So, how did you find the strength to support Zuza while also taking care of yourself and your family? You had you have another little boy that you need to show up for your patients in your integrative medicine practice. How do you keep yourself going, keep that machine rolling, even when you feel like you're running on fumes?
Yeah, in the beginning, when she was first diagnosed, when she was 3 and a half, I became very obsessed with finding, like, an integrative practitioner that could help me fill in the gaps that conventional medicine wasn't doing, and I couldn't find anybody that would work with kids. There's a lot of integrative oncology, adult resources, but not for kids. So I became obsessed with it being my mission to become that practitioner. And so, in the beginning, it was everything I can do so that she only has to go through this treatment once and we can be done. And when she relapsed 5 years later and we knew we had to do it again, I this has changed me so much. I realized that even if you give it everything, sometimes you truly can't control certain circumstances, but you can control how you are in them. And I wanted to be a really good example of strength and hope and positivity to her. And then, really, at the end, she became that to us when Ryan and I would, get discouraged or try to tell her, like, Zuza, there is no cure anymore. Like, there in conventional medicine, there is no cure anymore for this. And that was conversations we had a year ago. And she would just say, "Okay, but, like, I really feel inside I'm gonna be okay, and what's next? What can we do next?" Like, she was just always planning. This last year with the Glow House.
As you guys know, I'm in the Glow House, and our meetups are usually in really busy cities with crazy traffic. And when we were in New York, we were going to so many different places, and asking my mom to take me everywhere kind of got annoying. And that's why my mom finally got my own Uber Teen account.
I mean, we've been to New York and California again and Texas, and, like, she didn't do what we all do, which is worry about what's gonna happen tomorrow, right? Or think about what happened yesterday. She just lived every single day and lived through so much pain. And I know it was such a shock to people that she died. And it did happen quickly. Like, she'd been living with so much leukemia for a year, but people didn't realize because she was so positive and so many of her videos had nothing to do with cancer, how much leukemia she was living with, like how close to
Yeah.
potentially dying she was
Mm.
for a year.
Yeah. I think that can also teach us how to show up just for our friends, just asking, are you okay? Because sometimes the brightest, shiniest stars are struggling the most. Sounds like she lived such a full life. Look, I've been reading a lot about how cancer rates are rising, especially in younger people.
Yeah.
What do you personally think are some of the contributing factors to this?
Yep.
What does the science tell you, but what is also anecdotally,
Yeah.
what is your recommendation for families to
Yeah.
to to stay protected?
So right now, it's always like a perfect storm. So it's not like the same thing causing cancer in every child. It's always these 3 to 4 things that create this perfect storm. When I work with families, um, with kids who have cancer, one of the things that I do is we try to figure out what helped contribute to their cancer because that's what we need to heal in their life. But it's
Yeah.
our ultra processed food. So, I mean, our, like, artificial 90% of our grocery store, all the really crummy ingredients that are not allowed in other countries that we allow in our food. It is absolutely glyphosate. So glyphosate is like Roundup. It's what we spray on our fields, our corn, our backyards. If you look at a map of when glyphosate went into use and you look at pediatric cancer, it's like they overlap. Basically, glyphosate
Yeah,
and
look, I've done interviews with Bayer Monsanto, and they when they see, and I've shown them even those charts, and they say correlation doesn't mean causation, and they stand by their product. But so many people do feel that way.
oh,
They say the opposite, and Bayer Monsanto has been, they've paid out just enormous amounts in lawsuits,
it's
and they're
been
fighting for this what's being called the liability shield.
yep, it's been
But what
proven.
else do you think it might be?
Yeah, I mean, so it's chemicals, right? So it's all the chemicals like our makeup, our toiletries, our country allows like 1,200 more cancer-causing chemicals than other countries in these products. So especially now with all these girls, these get ready with me's being so popular, a lot of these products are not safe. So it's everything that we're putting on our body, right in our body, things we're putting on our body, our lotions, like especially like the makeup. There's a lot of really beautiful products, and I only allowed Zuza to ever, everything had to be cleared and had to be non-toxic. And
Yeah.
um, I think those are the main two things. It's the ultra processed ingredients, um, chemicals in our food, and it's the chemicals in the things that we're putting on our body. Those are the two main things. Our environment too, right? There's like super fun sites, and there's just places where people live where they call them cancer hotspots, where people are more affected. Um, there's also like our screens, like so there's certain cancers that are more correlated to different causes. So like brain tumors, for example, are on the rise with the cell phone, like the electronics that kids are living with on their heads, like nonstop. So I mean, those are the major causes. There's other things that are becoming more common in kids, which is crazy, like hormone disruption that you think of more when you think of cancer and like breast cancer and ovarian cancer. But there's like 12 and 13-year-old girls now getting breast cancer and ovarian cancer because of all these hormone disrupting chemicals that are in plastics and all these products.
I guess we have to think about too, a lot of these chemicals haven't been around for, that long, but the more generations of babies that are born to moms and dads who were in this type of environment, potentially that could be
Yes.
leading to it as
So
well. Take care.
newborn cord blood has 200 chemicals in it on average. So a baby is being born toxic.
Well, finally, if Zuza were here today, what do you think she'd want people to take away from her story? What's the legacy do you think she wants to leave behind?
Yeah, that whatever your circumstances are, there's certain things in our life that we can't change. If we have some kind of a trauma in our life or the death of a loved one or an illness, right? We can take steps in trying to change it, but there's just certain things that those are our circumstances to just do the best freaking job you can in your circumstance. We all have them. And we don't always all see them, right? Social media is all about making our lives look so perfect. And I love that she didn't do that. She I think would want people to make the most truly out of their circumstances and be authentic. That was a really big thing for her too, is just to really 1,000% be herself, and not just whoever, people wanted her to be for more likes. So
Yeah. Aw. Well, Dagmara Beine, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom with us today. I know Zuza's story is going to continue inspiring so many people, and hopefully, folks who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast will be inspired as well. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Sending you lots of love and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you found this conversation as moving and as inspiring as I did, please hit that subscribe button there on NewsNation's YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to follow me at Anna Kooiman, Ooiman. People mix it up, but follow me on Instagram for tips and tricks and inspiration to level up your wellness goals. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. And remember this, until next time, you got this, mama.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.